All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 1 to 21, I think. 131, somewhere around there. It's numbers. There's lots of numbers. Yeah. So, today, oh boy, apparently the algorithm has decided to show my video from a couple days ago to the critters. And it is not my most disliked video I've ever made. That honor belongs to one of the videos I made during the OGL debacle, which I was overwhelmingly right about. The biggest thing I got wrong, which I find this really interesting, because I had one person, I don't know if they still follow me. If you still do follow me, thank you, I think. But one person that replied and said, "You were just so wrong." I said, "What do you mean? I got this right, I got this right, I got this right." I said, "Yeah, but you said the best that we were going to get was for them to take out the monetization. And then we got it out in the Creative Commons. So you were massively wrong." I'm like, no one would have predicted that. It has never happened in the history of tabletop RPGs. That's like getting mad at a meteorologist for not predicting like the end of the world when somebody like was wandering around and accidentally made like a nuclear explosion from sneezing too hard. Like it just wasn't anywhere. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about bad DMing. If anyone is coming here to listen to me apologize or anything like that, I'm going to pull off a Band-Aid right now. I stand by my decision that what Abria did was bad DMing. Just plain and simple, but bad DMing. However, I had been given additional context, and it has kind of come to my attention that the video that I watched, where I got most of my initial context from, basically mashed up two separate parts of the game that were somewhat unrelated. I'll get into why they were still technically related a little bit later in the video. So people really tried to hammer down the context of that second clip and just completely ignored everything that I said about the first thing, other than saying, well, she was in a hard place. We're going to talk about this. The first thing I want to mention, this was never meant to be some kind of condemnation against Abria. I know towards the end of the video, if you actually made it that far, towards the end of the video, I do personally address Abria, because anytime I critique something somebody has done, at the end of my video, I do like to have a little section where I address them specifically, in the rare case that they actually watch it, because to me, having someone talk about you like you're not there on the internet is kind of annoying. And so having that little part where I go, hey, this is what you did wrong, and this, that's why I did to do it. And I think it might have come off a little bit harsher than I intended it to. But the additional context has not changed my opinion that what happened during that game was bad DMing. And again, it doesn't mean that Aubrey is a bad DM. I mean, in this particular instance, she made bad decisions as a DM. Like, that's... You can give me all the context. You can have me watch the entire episode. It's not going to change my opinion, because again, I've been doing this for a long time. I have been doing this longer than Abria has. And my experience is not so much in playing with a small group of friends. I used to run conventions. I have played with literally hundreds of different people. I have managed teams of dungeon masters and have had to deal with complaints from thousands of different players. When I say that I have seen dungeon masters make the same mistakes that she did, I mean that quite literally. I've watched them do it. And they are mistakes. So the video today, I'm going to start off by explaining the context that was explained to me because, again, there's always a chance that I'm 100% in the wrong. And I never want the people that watch my videos to only hear the things that support my point of view. If I am right, then giving everyone all of the information shouldn't make me look wrong. So I want to start off by talking about the context that people were kind enough to give to me. Some of them in nicer ways than others. But for the most part, other than one race-baiting, pick a derogatory term person, you know who you are. I'm not responding to your comment because it doesn't deserve a response. Really sorry, but I had an entire video. I never mentioned the race of anyone in the entire cast, and you decided to bring it up. Nope, sorry, you don't get a response. Let's just start off with the context that was given. So, the first bit of context I was given was by a very polite user that goes by Falruk, if I'm saying that correctly. I'm going to just read their comment because it was very concise and easy to understand. The what are the rules question was not related to the chromatic orb. It was, I believe, about the character being mind controlled, taking some emotional damage, and getting a save to get out of the mind control. So I believe the rules are that he gets to make a save whenever taking damage, and she ruled that something he heard warranted a save because of, quote, emotional damage. Emotional damage! For anyone that doesn't know, I can't remember the guy. Is it Stephen Hay? I don't know. There's a brilliant YouTuber that makes these great YouTube videos, and it's become a meme. But yeah, he's so funny and so brilliant. But that's how he says it. I'm not being racist or that's how he says it. I'm imitating an American, by the way. So anyway, and I responded, thanks for the context, and this is still my opinion right now, even getting even more context from other people. Thank you for the context. I still stand by my interpretation. That the fact that Robbie had to ask and her response was, I'm the DM, fuck you, still indicates an issue with her arbitrarily changing rules. And the fact that in one session, she seemed to have two different instances of randomly changing rules bad enough that the players didn't understand what was going on would point to a larger problem. And that is still my opinion now. The fact that, again, the entire purpose, the entire reason that you choose to use a particular rules system, and Matt Colville, I believe it was Matt Colville, has actually talked about this in one of his videos. Rules systems are not, the choice of a rule system in a tabletop RPG is not meant to be something that is used to figure out if you're cheating or not. The reason you choose a rule set for any tabletop RPG is effectively so that everybody has a common language with which to interpret things that you can't really interpret otherwise. You know, you have 5 or 6 people all playing make-believe together, and everybody's brain is going to look differently, work differently. Everyone is going to consider a situation differently. Even something as simple as 5 people are in a dungeon room with 3 giant rats. Everyone's going to picture that in their mind a little bit differently. One person might consider the dungeon as it has moss on the walls and there's like drips and little puddles and stuff like that everywhere. Where another person, it's going to be an extremely kind of dry place with like cobblestone and like carved stone walls and kind of airtight. And those two interpretations are going to massively change how a creative person deals with a situation. Someone that's really, really creative might go, hey, I want to take one of those puzzles and freeze it. And use that to, like, maybe I'm gonna push one of the rats into the puddle and I'm gonna freeze it to trap the rat there for a little bit so we can deal with these other ones. You know, so the reason that you choose a rule set is so that everybody has a shared language with which to interpret the world. When you start arbitrarily changing the definitions of words and using using words in ways that they weren't intended to be used, the entire purpose of having that shared language is shattered, and now people really don't know what's going on. And that, to me, was the bigger problem with this. It wasn't so much the fuck you, though, again, to me, that was just a bad choice of words. That, again, was intended to upset people. But it was the idea that when you start randomly changing rules and you don't give any sort of explanation as to why, it can cause frustration with the players. And again, the reason I know this is because I've experienced it myself in the thousands of hours of DMing I have done for D&D 5th edition and other RPGs. And I have seen other DMs that were working for me do that at conventions all across Wisconsin. Again, this is not me just kind of randomly picking stuff. I have literally thousands of hours of experience doing this. Michael Young 3388 was kind enough to reply twice, 2 different ways. I'm going to do the reply to Farlook's comment and my comment before I read his standalone. I'm assuming gender. I apologize. Their standalone comment. So here, this is a direct reply to the comment that I just read from me. So, at Trainer Jody, Robbie was asking whether seeing his character's brother die would activate a wisdom save on the charm Opal put him on, a command to just walk away from combat and let her get corrupted by Lolth. By the way, I should probably say, spoiler alert! I should have said that earlier. I'm sorry if you have been spoiled there, but spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about context, so obviously there are spoilers, but I should put that out. So let me do this again. Robbie was asking whether seeing his character's brother die would activate a wisdom save on the charm Opal put on him, a command to just walk away from combat and let her get corrupted by Lolth, which it usually would not. He would have to be hit, but her reasoning was the emotional damage. But her reasoning was the emotional damage, period. Robbie was hesitant to ask for the rule to be bent to allow this. That's why he asked, what are the rules? She was bending the rule for him and was just saying, the rules, whatever. You're missing some words here because I'm assuming you typed this very quickly. The rule, quotes, and I'm going to read exactly what they have here. The rules, whatever the fuck I say it is, unquote, ironically I might add, as in, don't worry about it, your suggestion makes sense, go for it. She was supporting her players. Context is king. So, yes, context is king. And that does put that statement in a slightly different light. It doesn't change my opinion because of, again, the tacking on the fuck you at the end. And again, even here, when you're admitting right there, Robbie was hesitant to ask for the rule to be bent to allow this. That's why he asked, what are the rules? Why was Robbie hesitant to ask for the rules to be bent? What you're describing here is an extremely common thing in tabletop role-playing games in general. It's something that I do constantly because when I actually get a chance to play a tabletop RPG, I roll like shit. I actually have a picture on my phone of me getting advantage on a roll and rolling double nat ones. And that's not the same as... Fun story. The first time I ever played D&D 5th edition, when it was still called D&D Next, it was at Gen Con. I'd never played it before. I sat down at a table, and it was we were playing this really cool adventure, and it was the first time any of us had ever played D&D Next, and it was the first time anyone had ever rolled with advantage, because that was a new system for 5th edition. And so our dungeon master, who was amazing, goes, hey, well, we're going to introduce a new mechanic here. This is something that's new to D&D Next. It's called advantage. What you're going to do is, because you're doing something and I think it's an interesting idea, I'm going to give you advantage in the roll. So you roll the d20 twice, and you take the higher of those two rolls. And the dude, like, literally, this was the first roll of the first game that we had ever played in 5th edition, back when it was D&D Next, and he rolled double nat ones, and everybody at the table took their phones out and took pictures. I still have that picture on my phone as well, but I also have done that. So the idea of kind of negotiating with the DM is something that at good tables happens constantly. My players do it all the time. And there's one player in particular that I think, Imp, if you're watching this, understand that I love when you negotiate. But I think just due to conversations that we've had during the games, I think he believes I have something out for his familiar, and I don't. He just tends to use his familiar as like a catch-all to, well, I can fix anything by just sending my familiar to do it. And it's not how that works. And every so often he will have his familiar do things that in a society where familiars can be used as spies, people are going to be much more aware of a very strange... His familiar is a fairy dragon, which is not native to the elemental plane that they're currently on. And so seeing a fairy dragon just kind of flying around will turn heads. And if they're mean people, they will probably think that they're being spied on, and the easiest way to stop someone from spying through a familiar is to just kill it. So his familiar gets killed on a fairly regular basis. I feel bad because it's a cool part of his character. But anyway, negotiating with the dungeon master is highly encouraged. That's the reason we play tabletop games instead of video games, because the DM can negotiate. You can go, hey, I've got this cool idea. Can I try it? The thing with negotiating with the DM is part of that negotiation is accepting that the DM does have the final say. Because I have seen the thing that changes from negotiating with the DM to becoming a rules lawyer is not accepting when the DM makes their decision. So you do have to kind of go into the negotiation understanding that the DM may not agree with me, and that's okay. However, in a situation where the DM will randomly change rules, negotiation becomes a significantly more dangerous thing, especially when it feels like, and I'm not saying this is what it was or was what it was intended to be, but if it feels like the DM is trying to punish you personally, then you will be very, very hesitant to ask for a rule to be bent, because you are worried that if you bring up something that the DM hadn't thought about, the DM is going to rule against you. Again, they're going to randomly, arbitrarily change rules that are going to make it even worse for you. And so even with the additional context that we have here, which again, I believe is very important, sarcasm in and of itself does not translate well in small little snippets. Sarcasm relies on context. It relies on inside jokes and stuff like that. So sarcasm and irony. So I will admit that the very tiny little clip that I saw, I did not sense any irony in it. I did not sense any sarcasm to it. It just looked like a mean-spirited DM trying to clap back at people before she got yelled at. Having additional context, I don't think it really changes my opinion on it that much. Effectively, it could be argued that basically Abra was effectively trying to kind of put herself in front of the rest of the party, going, hey, you want someone to yell at, you yell at me first and not them. But again, there are better ways to do it. And again, this comes from a very, very long history of playing with absolute strangers and from years of management. Like, again, management and DMing, there is a remarkable amount of overlap in the skills that are beneficial to both. Yeah, and again, even in your description here, the fact that Robbie was hesitant to negotiate indicates that the DM has created an environment where negotiation is uh, not looked upon favorably. That's not a good thing. That is I mean, in a management environment, we'd consider that a hostile work environment. If you're not allowed to question the management, and this can come up in legal cases and things like that. If the environment of a workplace is made to the point where rules will change seemingly arbitrarily, and if you question them you can be punished and or fired, that is a textbook definition of a hostile work environment. And that can lead to discrimination lawsuits and other things like that can cost companies millions of dollars. When we translate that to a significantly less high stakes situation like a Dungeons and Dragons game, it's still, it is obvious to me, even from your context explanation, that there is a hostile environment there for the players. Whether that was intentional or not really doesn't matter. Again, I'm going to always relate things back to business because that's what my expertise is in. I have a degree in business. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, understand business better than they do how to DM. I've never understood this, but it helps people understand. So I knew a lot of managers that would create very hostile environments for their employees completely unintentionally. And when I would have conversations with them about it, going, hey, we need to talk about, some of the stuff that you're doing. And they'd be like, well, what? It's perfectly fine. I said, no, it's not. You have employees that aren't willing to come to you about anything. It's like, well, that's not my fault. Absolutely, yes, it is. No, I have an open door policy. Open door policy means shit if you allow them to come into your office and then yell at them. Well, I haven't yelled at any of them. Yes, you have. No, I always keep my voice very measured. Well, okay, let's rephrase that then. You have reprimanded people for bringing up things that you've done wrong. Well, they didn't understand. You're 100% right. They didn't understand. And that's your problem, not theirs. Well, what do you mean? If you are not explaining what you're doing well enough to your employees to have them do the task they need to do, then that is a management problem, not an employee problem. Are there some employees that are either just thick as dog shit and are simply incapable of understanding more complex ideas? Absolutely, yes. They are so unbelievably rare that they are effectively a statistical anomaly. Funny enough, I have worked with someone that thick, and it blew my mind that they were ever able to get a job. And there are people who will intentionally misinterpret what you say simply to get a rise out of you, as a form of protest. Like, those are things that happen. However, both of those tend to be the minority of your workforce. The vast majority of your workforce are going to be people that want to be able to do their job as well as they can. And so if they don't understand, they seem to completely misunderstand everything that you're saying, it means you are communicating poorly. The likelihood of your entire staff intentionally misinterpreting what you're saying is so infinitesimally small, it's not worth talking about. You are not communicating effectively. And it was never intentional with a lot of these managers. Like, well, I didn't mean to do. No, you didn't. You just simply don't understand. You cannot see things from their viewpoint. And that is the single most important thing and most important skill to have as a manager or as a leader, is the ability to see things from your employees or from your from the people that you are leading's viewpoint. And when we transition this back to DMing, I think, again, I think what Abria did with the randomly changing how a spell works, specifically in detriment to a particular character, is just not okay. Again, it feels like punishing. I will almost guarantee that in the moment. Maybe afterwards, once everything was explained, it didn't happen. But in the moment, I will almost guarantee, especially based on what Michael Young is saying here, that Robbie felt that this was kind of some sort of punishment for his character personally. You can't really interpret it in any other ways. Thunder damage has been used before in these games. It has never changed how the spell worked, and now it magically does, and the only thing that changes is that his character's brother gets hurt. It's not an okay thing to do. Unless you can come up with a scene. Well, the reason that the thunder damage turned into an AoE is because this isn't D&D, it's Power Rangers, and you are fighting a monster created from a bell. And so when you hit them with sonic damage, the bell that makes up their head started ringing really loud, and the character that was so close took damage from it as well, because it's a bell monster. By the way, 100% I would do that in a Power Rangers game, because that sounds super fun. That being said, with the additional context here, again, to me it reinforces the idea that the players at the table were being very confused about how the game was run. And again, the fact that Robbie was hesitant to ask for the rule to be bent makes sense. You know, that supports my idea of, yes, Abra had created an environment where the players weren't sure of what the rules were. She had basically, they were all speaking English, and then she just started randomly adding in French words, and now they don't know if they're supposed to be speaking English or French or Portuguese. Which one of these days I'm going to make a vlog about Portuguese, because I after the whole Brazil thing, I did a deep dive into Portuguese, and I figured out why it sounds like gibberish to me, whereas all the other Romance languages sound somewhat similar to me. So one day I'll make a video about that. Anyway, to get back to this. So yeah, and that still kind of supports the idea that she is changing the rules. And it at that point, that might even be a compensation kind of thing, where, and again, this is me completely conjecturing, this is completely theorizing, do not take this to mean that this is 100% what happened, but it might be that Abra bent the rules back for Robbie that way to kind of make up for the fact that she bent them the other way before. And again, from a DMing perspective, that is a bad thing to do. Anytime the rules are bent, the players should be of the opinion that the rules were being bent because that's what made sense in terms of how the world works. They should never be under the opinion that the rules are being bent to either punish us or reward us. Don't bend rules to reward or punish players. There are already mechanics that are built into D&D 5th edition that allow you to reward players for doing interesting and creative things, and to punish players for doing things that would be detrimental to the campaign. The advantage-disadvantage system is one of those things that's a really robust thing. The DM inspiration system is another one in there. And if you read the Dungeon Master's Guide, they also have a few other ways that you could put some modifications in there as well. But for the most part, those things already exist. Changing how fundamental spells work simply to punish players is not okay. And then changing how saves work simply to make up for the fact that you punished them before is not okay. Because again, that changes the dynamic of the table of we are trying to tell an interesting story in this world to we are trying to get on the good side of the Dungeon Master. That's not what we want to be doing here. Now, I want to go a little bit higher. Again, Michael Young, 3388, had a standalone comment that was significantly more aggressive in its wording that I would like to talk about, simply because it's another thing about just DMing in general. And this is, again, not specifically to paint Aubrey in a bad light, but again, this is something that I have seen DMs do, and it's a bad idea. So let's talk about here. You're critiquing without full context? Question mark. You forgot your exclamation point there to show your outrage. She had one session worth to get Dorian ready to join Hell's Bells with a similar experiencing so the transition would be smoother and give a reason for the rest of the Crown Keepers to not follow him. She also did a lot of lore building with the gods of Exandria being afraid of Predathos, to the point of supposed good gods allowing Opal to be corrupted by Loth in order to have another weapon against them. If you want to listen to the rules lawyers, then fine. Considering that Matt Mercer was present and talked about how he loved the outcome won their four-sided dive, I think just on four-sided dive, I think she did fine. Do you guys know what the most dangerous profession in all of Faerun is? Parenting. It's so funny because it's true. Because, like, the backstory of all adventurers is that their parents died and that's what turned them into adventurers. Yeah. I actually really enjoy that joke. Because, first of all, it is true. And second of all, it's a bad trope. I'm going to tell you guys right now. I have been in situations similar to what Abria was put in. Where the idea of, hey, a character is leaving or something is happening that has to happen. And there's nothing, like, we can't modify things because IRL, real world stuff is happening that has to affect the game. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you need to motivate a character to do something, killing their family is the worst way to do it. Especially if you are killing their family in an actual round of combat. Let me explain. So, having somebody die is a really, really common trope in adventure stories all over. I mean, if we look at the 47 million times we have had to watch Uncle Ben die, in every single time they make a new retelling of Spider-Man, Uncle Ben dies again and again and again. A death in the family can be a great motivator for heroic actions. It can also be a great motivator for anti-heroic actions and for evil actions. I mean, look at the Punisher. If we're going to stick with the Marvel theme, his family died too, and he went a completely different way than Peter Parker. Spoiler alert: Spider-Man is Peter Parker, or Miles Morales, depending on which continuity you're in. So, I get that. Death of a family member can be a very powerful, and it's an extremely common way to motivate a character. It's not a great way to do it. There are significantly better ways to motivate characters than by death. Or at least by intentionally killing things. In the instance of Dorian, how do you get Dorian to go back to Bell's Hells without the rest of the Crown Keepers coming with him? How about a letter? Hey, spoiler alert. Hey, fresh cut grass is dead. Can you come to blah blah? We need to talk to you. Unbelievably simple. Oh, but they wouldn't have enough time to get a letter there. Well, then use a message spell. They had great use of that spell in campaign 2. There's a billion different ways to get a message when you live in a world of magic. There's a billion different ways to get a message to someone very, very, very quickly. So, super simple, super easy, doesn't require you murdering a member of their family. And again, this doesn't even require a suspension of disbelief. If you've never heard that phrase, suspension of disbelief is actually a theater term. And what it is when you go into a theater, and it also applies to watching television or watching movies or things like that, you understand that the things that are happening on stage are not real. They can't be real. If you're watching, you're watching like West Side Story and you suddenly hear a gunshot go off, you don't assume that somebody has actually pulled a firearm out or anything like that. No, there's a scene in West Side Story where they do use a prop gun. And depending on which version and who's performing it, they may use a prop gun, they may not. They may fire it, they may not. But you don't actually think someone is dying. In West Side Story, Bernardo gets stabbed, Riff gets stabbed. You never assume that either of them are really getting hurt or that the weapons that they're using are real. The term that they use to describe that is what's called the suspension of disbelief. It's basically this kind of social contract that you go, I am going to suspend my disbelief to know that this obviously isn't real, to be able to enjoy the story. And there is a certain point where the suspension of disbelief doesn't work anymore. If you start using too many cliches or you start putting too many coincidences into the show, the suspension of disbelief falls and the audience is taken out of, being involved in the story. And they're like, oh, we're watching a really crappy production of Macbeth. So when we're talking about the idea of Dorian needing to go back to Hell's Bells, a message saying, hey, fresh cut grass is dead, we need to talk to you, would be a very, very simple way to get him there. And it wouldn't be an unremarkable thing. Dorian traveled for a decent amount of time with that group. He knew fresh cut grass relatively well. And if you got told that a friend of yours had recently passed away and their friend group said, hey, we need to talk to you, you would have no problem going, hey guys, I need to go take care of this. And the only thing you need to do to keep the rest of them from following is give them a compelling reason to not. And it can be as simple as, hey, we're in the middle of something really important. And then Dorian gets to have a really interesting character moment where he goes, you know what? I understand this is important. I will be back here as soon as I possibly can. But I've got to go. That could be a very, very interesting character moment. And it could lead to some it could create some inter-party tension that would eventually have to be relieved and things like that. Like, there are a lot of different stories that can happen with that. Killing off someone, first of all, everybody reacts to death differently. And every death affects you differently. I literally, within the last week, lost an acquaintance of mine extremely suddenly. As in, a few days before, they were running games for Extra Life, and then they just weren't anywhere anymore. And it was hard to deal with. It's still hard to deal with. But that loss was completely different than a similar experience where I had a former teacher and then later very close friend had a sudden heart attack on his way to something. I can't even remember what he was doing. Something music related. And he was riding a bike, had a heart attack, unfortunately went into traffic and got hit and was gone instantly. No warning, no nothing. He was there one moment and was gone the next. And that messed me up majorly. And it's not that this person was the person that was lost recently was somehow lesser or something like that. It's just every death affects you very, very differently. And so hoping that killing off this particular character is going to ensure that they're motivated to do this exact thing, it's not a great idea. And then the other issue that comes in is if your goal is, well, I'm going to kill them in initiative, that's a bad idea just in general, because initiative is unpredictable. Combat is unpredictable. I have had quite a few situations where I have created these really unique combat situations for my players, and then they have gone completely off the rails. And what I thought would be an extremely difficult combat turned out to be one of the easiest, most simple combats I've ever had. A really good example of this The final combat encounter for Realms of the Wild, the RPG that I ran for Zelda Universe, I intentionally made the combat unwinnable, effectively. I stacked the deck so heavily against them that they shouldn't have been able to win. At all. Like, it shouldn't have been possible. You know how many rounds it took for them to completely lay out the big baddie? 3. None of them fell on, no, I think a couple of them fell unconscious for a moment. They didn't stay unconscious very long. And they wiped the floor with them. And it was an extremely satisfying combat as well. It wasn't like, oh, that was super easy. No, they had to think really critically. They had to come up with some very interesting ideas. They had to use the entire arena to their advantage. They came up with some nonsense that involved them pulling a part of the Triforce from a different dimension in to help them own this baddie. It was awesome. But you are never, ever going to be able to control the outcome of a combat encounter. They're always going to be weird. And if your goal for the combat encounter is that you're going to murder an NPC, don't have the NPC roll initiative. Don't give the NPC stats. Make them an object. Because then you have control over them. As soon as the dice get involved, all of that control is gone. And then the other thing, if you're creating a situation where it seems like the players could win, you don't then get to change the rules to make it so they can't win. Again, if you're going to, if you want to use murder as a way to motivate a character, it's a bad trope and it doesn't work a lot of the times, but let's say that's what you've agreed upon, then treat the character that's going to be killed as an object, not as a character. Because as soon as you make them a character and as soon as you let them roll initiative with the rest of the party is going to do everything they can to protect that character. And yeah, every so often they're going to succeed. And when it doesn't work, then you're in trouble because you have put all of your eggs in this one basket. Again, there are a lot of different ways to write a character off from one series to put them into another. And in a world with magic, there's even more. In a world with magic where the other team is literally having a contest dealing with the gods, there are so many different ways to get one character to join another team and the rest of that team, the rest of their previous team to not join them. Tons of different ways to do that. Murdering a character in order to give them some kind of motivation is a really bad way to do it. And then deciding that the way that you're going to murder that character is by controlling combat is an even worse idea. Because it's not going to work. And in this particular instance, it didn't. This is a perfect example of why you don't do that. If you take nothing else away from this video, please understand this. If you do have to railroad your characters, then railroad them. Don't try and hide the fact that, no, we're going to be doing this in a very particular way, because all it's going to do is upset your players. Give an example. I had some players that had to leave one of my games. And in order to do that, I found out like less than a week before we were playing, that I had to write this character out. So I very quickly kind of sat down through Discord with the players and went, okay, this is my idea. I think this and this and this and this and this is going to happen. And that way your character will be able to leave the party. It will leave the door open if you ever have the ability to come back. So we're not killing off your character or anything, but it gives you... literally what happened for one of the situations was they're in my version of Barovia. They're in my own personal domain of dread, and we have a Dark Lord. And so literally what happens is the Dark Lord comes in, paralyzes everybody, and then goes over and rips the soul out of the character of the player's character that had to leave the campaign. There was no rolling. There was no nothing. It was just came over. He ripped the soul out of the person and then kept the soul in his castle. The soul is still there to this day. I'm still running that campaign. The soul is still trapped in the castle, and I have a kind of running dialogue of the kind of conversation that has been happening between this trapped soul and the Dark Lord. So again, that had to happen. If I had turned it into a combat encounter where he was just going to kind of focus fire him, and then there was always going to be a chance that it might not work that way, and it couldn't. I had to get rid of that character because the player wasn't going to be playing with us anymore. That particular player, if I remember correctly, it was a job thing. Their job had just gotten significantly busier, and they just weren't available Wednesday nights when we played, which is a completely legitimate reason to not play anymore. There was no bad blood. I keep meaning to contact the guy again and just go, hey, it's been a couple years, or it's been at least a year. I don't know if it's been more than one. I don't know if if your schedule has changed at all, but your character's still here if you want him. So yeah, if you need to railroad the players, which does happen every so often, then railroad them. Don't try and hide it of, oh, it was the dice. No, you're going to railroad them. Again, there is a social contract in place when you are playing a tabletop RPG. And part of that social contract is, well, we want to keep telling this story. And sometimes IRL stuff will affect how the story goes. And so everybody will get told. In that particular instance that I just described, I did not tell any of the players that this was going to happen. It just happened. And then after the session was over, I go, hey, by the way, guys, I just wanted to let you know, the reason we killed this character off is this player can't play with us anymore. So just wanted to let you guys know there was nothing you could have done to stop that. It's not your fault. It was not me punishing you or anything like that. It was just they unfortunately had to leave, and this was the way we decided to let their character exit, because it leaves the option of them being able to come back. The next week, I had a completely different campaign I was running that they also had to get rid of that character. And because I had different players with different mindsets and things like that, that one, before we went live, I decided to go, hey, by the way, guys, this player has to leave, so their character is going to be taken out of the campaign in a way that doesn't kill the character off. But I just wanted to let you guys know there's going to be nothing you can do to stop this character from leaving. So don't feel bad. Don't get angry or something. There's going to be a situation that happens that seems kind of out of the blue and just seems like there was nothing you could do to prevent it. It's because there was nothing you can do to prevent it, and it's because of IRL stuff. And all my players were completely fine with that. So if you do have to railroad your characters, then railroad them. Again, we treat railroading as this evil, disgusting word that good DMs never have to railroad. Yes, they do. It happens all the time. Especially when IRL stuff starts happening. So if you need a certain thing to happen, then make the certain thing happen. Don't try and hide it behind this idea of, oh, it was the dice. It was the dice, and that's what happened. Because it wasn't. It was your intention from the beginning. Just be honest about it. Again, that's another thing that kind of breaks the social contract. The idea of trying to hide the fact that you were forcing something to happen when you were. Again, like I said, I think there was a lot better ways to do it. I'm still not particularly fond. Again, now that I have more context about what happened with the fuck you line, I still don't think it was the right way to go about it. I believe it caused more harm than it solved, and again, I think that combined with what had happened earlier in the game created a situation where the players are nervous to talk to their DM, and it's already been supported by the comment defending Abria. Now, again, I'm not saying that Abria is a bad DM. I said she did something that was bad while she was DMing. And what she did is something that bad DMs do. But again, as I mentioned in my video yesterday, or a couple days ago, Abria has been praised for her DMing ability, specifically with Dimension 20. There are 2 campaigns that she ran, or 2 somethings that she ran. Again, I don't subscribe to Dropout, so I haven't seen any of them. She's gotten rave reviews. She's a fantastic player from everything that I have heard. To be perfectly honest, I really haven't seen a whole lot of stuff that Abria has done, either as a player or as a DM. I didn't watch the Exandria Unlimited series beyond, what was it? I think I watched like the first 2 episodes of the first Exandria Unlimited, and I got turned off by a few things that was going on. One of them was Abria's DMing style. Which again, just because I don't like her DMing style doesn't mean that it's bad or anything like that. It just wasn't for me. So again, this is not meant to be some kind of attack against Abria or attack against Critical Role or something like that. This is specifically talking about something that bad DMs do, and I've seen them do it over and over and over again, and it never turns out well. The more context I get for this, the more it reinforces my opinion that what initially happened with the changing of the chromatic orb shouldn't have happened. It was a mistake, and it sounds kind of like Abria was trying to make up for it later on in the game, which is also not something that you need to do. If you make a mistake, own up to the mistake, and then move on. 2 wrongs don't make a right kind of thing, or an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. Just because you broke the rules in one way doesn't mean that the way that you fix it is you break the rules in the other way. No, because that still means that the rules are arbitrary, and depending on what happens, players can't count on the language staying consistent. Players can't count on, well, if I do this, I know what the results are going to be, or I have a good idea what the results are going to be. And that creates tension within the party. It makes them second guess everything that they do, because they're never going to be able to be 100% sure that a completely normal decision like choosing thunder damage instead of fire damage isn't going to result in something really, really bad happening that they couldn't have anticipated no matter what they did. You don't want to do that. It discourages player creativity. It discourages communicating with the DM, which has already been seen here. It's a bad idea. And then again, if you do have to rewrite a campaign because a player has to leave, don't leave that up to chance. If you need to railroad, then railroad. Don't try and make it look like, oh, it was the dice and that made it good. It's only going to support more of those theories that everything is scripted, which it isn't, by the way. And I really, really get annoyed by people going, well, look, they couldn't have done this and blah, 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 and no normal human. Just like, no, you are obviously not an actor. I have seen completely improvised stories from extremely talented actors look like something that was written in Hollywood. Like, there are just certain people that are really, really good at it. And if you know your scene partners really well, you don't need a writer to help you to create really interesting emotional scenes. It's being an actor. You can't understand it if you've never acted before. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to give everybody on the channel more context, because more context has been provided to me. And again, I never want to be the person that is spreading misinformation. So if you guys do believe that I'm 100% wrong here, that is your right as a human being. And if you want to comment horrible things on the video, if you want to downvote the video, anything that you want, to be perfectly honest, downvoting the video helps it. I know this gets said all the time, but it really is 100% true. According to the algorithm, they don't care if you thumbs up or thumbs down. As long as something is being clicked, they're going to push it to more people. So downvote this video into oblivion. I will get more views on it than I've ever had. But yeah, my official opinion on what happened was Abria made a bad DMing decision and then attempted to make up for it later on by making a worse DM decision, all because she needed to railroad the party to come up with a lucid reason for why one of the party members would leave. There are better ways to do it. I ran an entire 4-hour one-shot, completely improvised, based on a single paragraph of basically just a single paragraph of copy that was used to recruit players. I have written players out of adventures, out of campaigns, literally with, less than a day to prep for it. It's part of being a dungeon master. Some people don't work super well in an environment like that, and that's perfectly fine. If that's not what Abria excels at, again, that's perfectly fine. But to be blunt, she has so many resources available to her. She has Matt Mercer, who's not perfect, but is very knowledgeable. Mark Holmes is friends with the cast. Colville is aware of the cast. I don't know if they're particularly close or anything like that. Perkins is friends with the cast. She works with Brennan all the time. All of these are unbelievably skilled and talented dungeon masters. That if this was not something that she felt that she could do, there's so many other places that she could have gotten help for. And who knows, maybe this was the decision that her and Matt came up with together. It's very possible. And again, the idea that, well, on Four-Sided Dive, everyone said that it was super awesome and great. Congratulations. Just because they've decided that they like it doesn't make the decision any less bad. Again, Matt Mercer gets things wrong. We don't know what happened behind the scenes. It's possible that Abria gave a completely different explanation to what the audience gave. It's possible that, again, when you say bad things about Critical Role, bad things happen to you. Look at my video about this. I have people getting very, very upset with me. And I am a tiny, minuscule channel that, let's be honest here, no one should really be listening to. I think I am incredibly informative and I have a lot of experience, but I have less than 1,000 subscribers. I am unbelievably easy to ignore. So, you don't like what I say, there's no reason that you have to actually watch my video on it. If people hadn't commented and downvoted the video, it wouldn't have been popular enough for other people to see it. Like, all of that stuff helped. So, yeah, my opinion has not changed even with additional context being given. I do not believe Abria made the right decision in that particular moment. And I believe she compounded her mistake by creating an environment where players are afraid to negotiate with the DM. And then when they did negotiate, she had a very, very strongly worded, since I'm not allowed to use the word aggressive, very strongly worded phrase that she used that simply isn't necessary in that particular moment. She was flexing authority that she doesn't have. And again, she pulled rank. Even if she was pulling rank with chat instead of the players, pulling rank never works. Ever. All it does is it makes people lose respect for you. You want to know, let's say that everything she did was right and she wanted that similar conversation is happening, and she wanted to kind of get in front of it so that if people were, the rules lawyers are going to be attacking her, that she preemptively attacked them first. It's a bad idea, but let's say that that's the idea that we're going to go with. You want to know a better way to have said that? Robbie goes, I don't know what the rules are here. Can I do this? First thing he goes, well, you are always welcome to ask what the rules are. I will give as good an explanation as possible. Please never be afraid to ask what the rules are. And this is a really interesting idea. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that, yeah, you can have this as a saving throw for that. If anyone doesn't like that ruling, this is the ruling that I am making. So direct your criticism towards me. I will stand by my decision because I think this is an interesting, cool thing. And I think it would be something that even under magical mind control, I think it would be, the relationship there is strong enough that it would cause just a momentarily kind of glitch in the matrix for it. That is a completely simple way. Now, it's not as short as succinct, I'm the DM, fuck you. Which isn't how she said it, by the way. She was like, you know what? Because I'm the DM. Turns to the camera. So fuck you. And I don't know why I looked there for the camera, because the camera's right there. I've been looking into it all day. I don't know why I felt the need to go there for it. But especially since she didn't turn to the right. She turned to the left because the camera's to her left. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, significantly better ways to do that. Now again, does that mean that I think Abra is a horrible DM and she should never be allowed to run a game again? No. Every single DM makes mistakes. I said it last time. Success is a lousy teacher. Failure is a phenomenal teacher. Use the failure. This happened. You're getting called out for it, justifiably so. Take the criticism. Ignore the trolls. And move on with your life. But fixating so much on it, and I understand the irony of this, fixating so much on it just isn't a good idea. It was a bad call, followed by a second bad call, and it has damaged your relationship with your players. Even if none of them are willing to admit it, because saying bad things about Critical Role gets people canceled. I can tell you from the bits I have seen, your relationship with your players has been damaged. Repeatedly. Body language, micro expressions, they're there, they're real. Argue with me as much as you want. At the end of the day, all of these people are still friends. And so they're going to let things slide for due to the fact that they are all friends. And that's perfectly fine. But nothing has changed in my opinion. It was a bad idea. There's significantly better ways to deal with it. Don't do that again. And again, the entire purpose of this was not so much to target Abria specifically. This is advice for dungeon masters. If you are put in a similar situation that Abria has been, where you need to get rid of a character, don't murder a family member to have them go off. There's a billion other ways to get them to go off. If you are going to murder a family member, don't make it a part of combat, because then you're going to have to fudge dice in order to make it work. You're going to murder someone, murder them, railroad it, and then move on. If that's the decision that you made, stand by your decision. We have used Abria as what's the word? Not an example. There's a word that I used to know. We did it in college all the time, where you would take a specific situation and you would kind of break it down into its component pieces to talk about a grander idea that you need to understand. That's effectively what we're doing here. This is not me being mad at Abria. I firmly believe that her DM style and my play style are probably not that compatible. I probably would not have fun playing at a table run by Abria. I have no idea if she would have fun playing at a table run by me. And that's perfectly fine. There are certain people that just don't play well together. It doesn't mean that either person is bad or evil or wrong or anything. So yeah. By the way, again, Abra, if you do watch this, normally if I'm critiquing someone, I will call them by a title and their last name. For whatever reason, my brain does not like to pronounce your last name very well. So I'm going to call you Abra, but understand that I approach this with the utmost respect and dignity that I can offer. If any of this feels like a personal attack against you, it is not. It was never my intention to attack you. It was simply to attack about simply to attack. Let's try this again. It was simply to address the choices that you made and to talk about the larger problem that they create for dungeon masters, because a lot of people look up to Critical Role and a lot of people look up to you, and they're going to see your actions as permission to do the exact same thing to their players, and it's going to end up significantly worse than it did for you. Not everybody gets to work for a multi-million-dollar company that employs extremely talented actors that have already learned how to not take rejection personally, because that's what acting is. It's a crap ton of rejection followed every so often by being accepted. Most players would not react how your table reacted. I know this because, again, I've played with and observed thousands. One of the benefits of doing the convention circuit for as long as I did. I have the utmost respect for what you do. I think you're a phenomenal person. I think you're a very skilled actor. And I think that while your particular DMing style is not something that I would enjoy, there are a lot of people that do enjoy it. And I think if you want, you're probably going to have a very long career doing this, as long as the career exists. Which, again, the way this world is going, 15 years ago, nobody would have thought professional dungeon mastering was a thing. Definitely didn't think professional dungeon mastering on the internet was a thing, and it exists. Who knows what's going to exist in 10 years? But you've done I'm going to try this one more time. You've done exceptionally well with everything that you've done. And just because I personally believe that you made a couple of mistakes in this does not mean somehow you are a lesser person or a lesser DM or anything like that. You do you, I do me. Again, I'm a dude that lives in his brother's basement that has not seen the sky in almost 3 years. Why does it matter what I think of you? Legitimately. You don't agree with my opinion is perfectly fine. You think you did everything right, that's perfectly fine. You think I'm an asshole, you're probably right. But at the end of the day, my goal is always going to be trying to get information out into the world that is going to improve the experience of as many people as possible. And my personal belief is the examples that you made in this particular episode are going to make the experience worse for other people. Whether you think you did them correctly or not, people are going to take the lessons that they learned from that and use it to create bad situations for their players. So that has been the entire reason I wanted to talk about this. I genuinely don't like talking about drama. Despite the fact that some of my most popular videos are when I'm talking about Critical Role drama, I actually don't like making videos like this. It's not fun. I have panic attacks about this. I was freaking out when I started seeing the views jump and people started saying, commenting on the video in rather aggressive manners. Like that stuff massively messes with my anxiety, and because my panic disorder is completely untreated, because the drugs that treat it will kill me, this is stuff that can genuinely damage my life. So don't think that I'm doing this for internet clout or that I like to be contrarian or something like that. I am genuinely doing this because I want to help as many people as physically possible. So if I've somehow offended you, I apologize. I'm not going to apologize about my opinions because, again, I believe that they're right. But if I've somehow made this seem that I'm targeting you personally, is never my intention. That is not what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I'm sorry if that's what's happened. Also, make better life choices because there's significantly better things you could be doing than watching me talk for an hour. So, that being said, for everybody else watching this, Michael Young, 3388, if you still have extremely strong opinions and think that I'm very, very wrong, that's okay. I'm not angry with you. I will say, maybe proofread the stuff that you write a little bit before you hit the post point, because reading it out loud is really, really hard. But again, I completely understand. I understand that Abria's probably getting a lot of hate that she doesn't deserve. And it's very easy to assume that that's what I'm doing as well. Again, don't hate Abria. I think she's phenomenal. But you don't accept this, you think that I've got my head up my ass, it's perfectly fine. Say whatever you want in the comments down below. I would prefer if they were a little bit more polite, but as long as you're not attacking other people in the comments or being incredibly aggressive against me personally, post anything that you want. I think that's perfectly fine. Falruck, let's try that again. Thank you so much for giving me additional context. I sincerely appreciate that. Everybody else, aside from that one person that doesn't get a reply, I sincerely appreciate every time anyone comments on my videos. I do my absolute best to reply to every single comment because my channel is just not big enough for me not to be able to. But yeah, again, I have literally thousands upon thousands of hours of experience doing this. I've run conventions. I have run multiple weekly games for a decade. I have created my own custom campaigns multiple times. I have my own campaign setting. I have created 2 custom campaigns and customized systems for Zelda Universe. I'm a platinum best-selling author on the DMs Guild. I'm extremely knowledgeable about this stuff, and I have a degree in business marketing management. And back when I was able to work, I was a phenomenally good manager. I understand people. I understand how to influence them and how to motivate people successfully. And half of being a dungeon master is learning how to motivate your players. And this ain't it. So, yeah, I hope this clears it up. This is, aside from like Abria herself or Mercer himself calling me out about this, this is the last video I'm making about this. The next video I make is probably just going to be about some generic D&D thing, or because again it feels like my brain has decided to punish me again, it might just be me being sick for another few days because my life fucking sucks. But it's the last time I'm going to talk about this particular thing because I have talked about it ad nauseum. Anyone that is going to learn anything from this situation has learned it by now. And anything else about this is just going to be people arguing at each other. And I'm not here for that. So anyway, that is going to be all for me today. I will see you guys in the next time. All right? Bye-bye.